Welcome back to the Danger Planet, guys. Today we're talking about the upcoming new Infinity game edition from Corvus Belli. Hey guys, this is Doug. I'm here with Brandon and a very, very special guest, Dr. D. Say hello to the internet.
Hello, Mr. Internet. I'm hoping that if I come on here more than once, it'll always be super, super special, but maybe it'll wear off. Maybe
It will always be special with you here, I think. So we have all gathered here today to talk about the new upcoming edition of Corvus Belli's flagship product that I'm very excited about, and I know hopefully a bunch of you guys are excited about. We're talking about Infinity N5. And we have brought on Dr. D because he is one of our friends that knows the most about Infinity, and we're scared and confused, and we need his help. So here we are. I started my Infinity journey probably about a year or so ago, but it had some stops and starts in it. So I'm really, really looking forward to this new edition drop, but I need my friends to explain to me what the hell's going on with it. So that's why we have Dr. D here. So with that introduction, Dr. D, welcome to the channel. We're very happy to have you here.
Hello.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in wargaming?
Well, I started, like many others, how to play a miniatures game way back when with Warhammer Fantasy. And I was in, I want to say, it's been like 8th grade or something like that. So me and a buddy of mine, we went into a store that no longer exists called Sci-Fi City. Anybody in the Florida, Orlando area is definitely going to know that store for sure and how great it was. And so they sucked me in there, and I played GW games for quite a while. Eventually, I played Warhammer Hordes, like I'm sure many others have. And then when I started working at a store called Paladin Tech and Game, I got exposed to Infinity. Back then, I also played a lot of Flames of War. There's not a lot of miniature games I haven't played, but from what I understand, you would like this episode to end at some point, so I won't go into all of them. But I started playing it must have been like middle of N2, and I started with Caledonia way back when. And so I have been playing Infinity in some form or variety or taking a break throughout every single edition. When I went to doctor school, when I went to Cairo school, I had to play it very, very little, and I was playing US Ariadne at the time. I had to come back and forth. Let me tell you, post-grad steals a little bit of time out of your day. Let's just put it that way. And eventually I moved up here. I was not playing Infinity because I had graduated, and I was still trying to find community up here in the Massachusetts area. And eventually I found it, so now I go to Webway Games in Marlborough, Massachusetts, which is usually where I host all of the events that I run and all that. And we've created a community that I can't describe in words because of how amazing it is. It's just the absolute best people. We all play really, really reliably. It's one of the very few places I think you could ever go to a store, just bring your Infinity stuff, and you could probably get a pickup game, which I love Infinity. I love its flaws in a lot of ways. I think the blemishes on its face are some of the things that make it more
Beautiful.
special. Yeah, more beautiful in a lot of ways. And I think when you go to a store with the intent of playing this game, it's very, very rare for you to be able to find just like a random person there who probably plays it, since this game is probably not going to be as universally seen as like a GW game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think that if you have any type of community where you've got a weekly standing kind of game night and people are randomly showing up for pickup games on a consistent basis, that's an indicator of a pretty healthy community, in my opinion. I mean, most of my life is scheduling games a week or more in advance and driving out to meet a person at a store or whatever like that. It's we don't have as many like weekly meetup stuff around us anymore, unfortunately, but Brendan and I definitely one day will look forward to hopefully having that again. So tell us about what else you do on the internet, Dr. D. Where else can these folks find you if they're looking for more Dr. D in their earlobes after we finish this episode?
So
what are you up to? Where are you at?
So when I got up here, I really got into MCP when it first released, and it introduced me to the Professional Casual Network, which is PCN. You can definitely find them online. We make all kinds of stuff. And eventually I got absorbed into them. And eventually, when another very beloved Infinity podcast disappeared, Mayacast, they eventually retired. I think it was about a year ago. Literally, the next day, I said to myself, there is now going to be a gap in the podcasting like sphere of influence that is going to be open because of the fact that they have retired. Now, I had no claims of being as good as them. Tom and Kip are absolutely phenomenal people, and I don't think I would ever be able to fill their shoes quite as fully as I wish I could. But I started the podcast Arachne, which is a Infinity, which is quickly turning into a skirmish game podcast. It's like 90% Infinity probably at this point. And we make stuff every other week. It's been a little weird lately just because of everything that's been going on. I started my own business, so it's getting kind of spotty at times, but I'm sure you guys understand that life.
Not like running your own business would be hard or taking up any amount of your free time or normal time or anything like that, right? It's
No,
pretty
not
easy.
Not at all.
It is business.
It definitely doesn't like keep me awake at night sometimes, just sitting there wondering what the heck I'm doing.
The dread.
Wait,
so
are you doing chiropractic businesses, or are you doing something else that's cool?
Yes, sir. I'm a chiro. I am
okay.
currently in the midst of transferring a business over to Dylan.
Oh, gotcha.
So if you ever want to come see me, it's Englander Chiropractic up in Lexington. If you're ever
Like somebody who is from England, Englander.
No, funnily enough, the current / previous, soon to be previous owner, her last name is Englander, and I was like, man, what are the chances of that?
Wow.
Sometimes Brandon's back really hurts from carrying the podcast from a conversational and witty banter perspective.
That's
so
true.
if his back actually breaks from all of that weight, he may have to come see you.
Let me tell you, it would not be the first time. I have to be careful about how I word this. Like, if I went to a con, let's just say Adepticon, let's just say the floor of the main room, I pushed real hard on somebody's back. I didn't do full chiropractic because that would require a license. But let's just say I pushed hard.
But have you ever had somebody come up to you and be like, you're like, why does your back hurt? And the person's like, witty banter and making fun of my friends. Because that is what's going to happen when Brandon visits you, basically.
Wow.
I thought it was all the caffeine flowing through his veins.
Well, that's that's kind of replaced his blood at this point.
I don't have blood anymore.
Yeah.
It's just caffeine.
It's just caffeine.
Yeah.
It's the juice that keeps me moving as well, Brendan. I fully understand.
Yeah.
All right.
And lately, it's been a lot of Dayquil. I'll have more chiropractor questions as we go, but please continue.
I completely lost my track of what we were even talking about. Oh,
you
yeah.
were talking about how you got folded into the professional casual network and slowly how your stuff started to grow when a bigger influencer kind of stepped away for a little bit, I think is kind of where we're at.
So now that I have Arachne, I've been kind of slowly pushing into other stuff. So currently, everything that I make is under the Arachne label. So if you're ever like, what's Dr. D doing? Look under Arachne, and I will occasionally pop into other PCN stuff. So if you like live play RPG stuff, we've been working on Star Omens, which is a RPG live play of the new edition, or the upcoming edition of Starfinder. I've released Little House, Big City, which is my Through the Breach live play under Arachne. So if you actually want to watch something that's not just effective dice doing RPG or Malifaux style, then come find Arachne. It'll be in there.
Oh my gosh, there's a second Through the Breach? Wow.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. We're multiplying like weeds.
There's 100% more than we knew about. There's 2.
Wow.
All right, that is a very good context and background. And to be fair, that is the reason why I was like, hey, man, will you help us out and, explain to us how Infinity works again? Because we need your help.
Well,
so
I'm sure we'll link some amount of Dr. D Arachne.
We'll have all the Dr. D content linked in the bottom of this. So if you guys need some more Dr. D in your life, you'll know where to find it. Don't you worry.
So I played a very, very small amount of Infinity. So despite, I guess, my usual leanings of I play Malifaux and only Malifaux, don't talk to me about anything that's not Malifaux, I'm actually excited about seeing what the 5th edition stuff is. I was trying to look up what faction I had played, and I was on their website, and it looks like there's only 4 factions, and they're sedans, crossovers, and SUVs, certified pre-owned, and future in concept. And maybe I'm on the wrong website, but none of these models look anything like the stuff that I had.
What does their gas
efficiency
look like?
I was gonna say they sound much more expensive than a 38mm model.
Yeah, it looks like the models start at about 50 grand each, and this seems a little out of my price range right now, quite frankly. But no, I played I think 1 game of 2nd edition with a Hawk Islam starter versus a Yujing starter, and that's all I got.
I weirdly, I own Hawk Islam. It's all painted up, and I have JSA in a bunch of boxes. So imagine how hyped I was when I saw that JSA is getting kind of the full faction treatment. But I guess we're getting a little bit in front of ourselves. We'll do these orders in questions for the D here. Mr. D, Dr. D, Professor D. I'm going to open up with a really broad question. So, take this in kind of whatever direction you want. But given the fact that we are kind of on the precipice of an edition change, and that doesn't happen that much in the Infinity world, what's your general take on the new upcoming edition for Infinity? Just at a high level.
So, very, very high level. Since I've been playing from N2 all the way up until coming into N5, I will say that the edition changes between 2, and this is to provide some context, the edition change from 2 to 3, pretty drastic, lots of changes, hacking, insanely complicated in 3rd edition. The edition change from 3 to 4, very drastic. They, again, kind of revamped how hacking works, and they just changed lots of... They kind of changed the fundamentals of how the game itself is played, beyond just the basic premise of the order system and all that stuff. Very, very different. So if you played any of those editions and you come into this new one, it might seem I don't want to say radically different, but you're definitely gonna be like, actually, I don't think that's how that used to work. The way that I've seen the change from 4 to 5, at least with all the information that I have so far, is that if you were to have, I don't know, gone to the mall and, you got trapped in a dumpster or something like that, and you just finally managed to break out after eating all the garbage and you ate out through the bottom of the trash can. That's a really weirdly specific example. I don't know why I went that direction. But if you were to pop out after N5 had been released, you might actually not even notice that the edition had really changed all that much, because it seems like most of the basic foundations of the game are probably going to be pretty similar. And they're definitely using this edition to refine either some of the rules that were not being used very often, which is good, and they wanted to switch the damage system, because there was some people... This is one of the things that I am kind of I don't really understand why they wanted to do it, but I guess some people were having problems with it, where the damage system in the game is you used to have to roll above the amount of damage that your character suffers when they get shot by a bullet or get bonked on the head. Now they're switching it to where you have to roll under it, and they had to switch the damage stat on weapons. Instead of being damage, it's now possibility of survival, which I guess is some real-life military term that they wanted to use. So overall, I think that N5 is more of a polishing the diamond kind of edition, and I know that the very, very number-loving people will realize that N4 was the shortest edition for Infinity. I think it came in around 4 years. I think it came out right before. It was either right before or while COVID was happening. So it was 2020. And sorry, you might hear dogs in the background. And the other editions usually lasted I think they were about 6. So the interesting thing about this edition is, now that we're going into it, I think that Corvus Belli have really, really kind of pressed into the things that they know work. So they've been using these big edition changes to kind of, I guess, swing the bat and see if they can hit the ball. I think at this point, they're just trying to really press into the things that they know are working and just wiggle some things that are not. Now, why do you think that they might have just not... Maybe they should have just changed the rules and kept it, because they do have a little bit of a living rule system. I think that with the amount of new stuff that's coming, because of the fact that A, they're releasing a new faction, and B, you're looking to kind of revamp army construction, which I think is one of the main things that CB being Corvus Belli, for anybody who doesn't know, henceforth will be known as CB, because Corvus Belli is too big. That's too many syllables.
It's too many syllables.
So when you look at what they're trying to change with the new edition, which is almost entirely, at least from what we've seen so far, is army construction and how the profiles in themselves work. That seems to be where the biggest differences are, to me anyway.
I think that's a really good point, though. I think you made a really good point, which meshes with what I was watching when I was watching videos of Carlos talking about N5. He talked a lot about the user experience, and he talked a lot about wanting to enable onboarding for new users, which was something I picked up on. And he also mentioned, when I was watching some of his interviews, tweaking existing systems, but not making too many radical overarching changes in general, which is kind of meshes with what I kind of just heard you say. Based on all that stuff, are there specific things that you as an Infinity veteran are most looking forward to about this edition? Are there quality of life changes where you're like, hell yeah, this is going to make the game a lot better? Is there anything where you're like, we'll see how that plays out? Like, what are your feelings on the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what are those things in your opinion, I guess?
So I'll start with the stuff that is probably more of like the bigger concepts, and then maybe this might turn a little into theoretical, because technically speaking, as per the release of this video, we don't know all the information, but we know a good chunk.
Yeah, we're at time of recording right now is early October, with the release date of this edition early mid-November, right?
Yeah, I want to say it's like November 11th to the 20th or something. For some
Bro,
reason,
my birthday is November 10th. How wild would it be if they dropped the N5 on my birthday? That'd be crazy.
Dude, we'll all go to your house and just have the
everybody come to Boston to play Infinity
Planet tournament.
We have one table and a really, really needy Stafford Terrier that will beg you for treats the entire time.
So as a long-standing player, some of the thing I'm most excited about is seeing, like I was saying, the army construction rules being changed. One of the things that Carlos has talked about ad nauseum in all of his interviews is that CB is aware of the issues when it comes to profile bloat, especially when it comes to the vanilla factions. And they know that they need to be altered in order to kind of keep the game fresh, because a lot of times you have very, 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 very good players who will make lists, Lobo being probably the most, I don't want to say egregious. I love Lobo. He's a great guy. He is probably the most well-known purveyor of I built one list, I'm going to play this list. I don't really care about the lore implications or whatever, but these are the units that I think are the most effective for their point cost, and very much all the fat is trimmed off. This is what you play in order to win with this list. And you'll notice that when you go to, and I guess you could kind of call that a net list. It's a little bit harder to net list in the Infinity world, but for just ease of translation, I will just say they're sort of like net lists in a lot of ways. And obviously, I say that a good player can easily beat these lists in this game, but if you have a very skilled player using one of these lists, they're a force to be reckoned with, let's just put it that way. So what I'm excited to see is, with the new changes to the army structure, I guess, with what profiles are allowed in each of the sectorials and the vanilla factions, I'm very excited to see some of the super optimized profiles being locked behind a sectorial gate, so that, and I can explain what that means to anybody who's not Infinity.
That's a really good point, honestly. I agree with you.
So, and the reason that I know that this is good for the game is I'm a huge O12 player. O12, I believe, was designed in such a way where I'm hoping that's where they want to go with N5. O12 are the police faction, and they have vanilla and they have two sectorials. One of them just got released at the last Decepticon. O12 is, you walk up to it, you buy one of the factions in it, one of the keywords, if you want to, give it like a bit of a Malifaux twist, and you have to make very, very hard decisions in each one of these factions, because of the fact that you do not get all of the best profiles in the faction, that is O12, they're not all easily accessible in one place of the sectorials. So, like, as an example to a Malifaux player, if I was playing Rezzers would be the faction, but I wanted to play Mick Morning, so you would have the very specific experimental keyword. And in this game, there's really not like an out of keyword thing where you can pull stuff from other factions. You're literally locked into what Mick Morning can bring, as an example. And if you really, really want, Betty Noir or whatever, I think I pronounced that right.
No, it's bad, but everybody gets it wrong. So
yeah, you're the Biet.
No, it's bad. It's just bad.
I don't know.
It's just bad. But literally, case in point, everybody gets it wrong.
Yeah, everybody gets it wrong.
No, there you go. I'm just the statistic. So if you really wanted to bring her into his crew, you couldn't do that in Infinity. So it really creates a difficult decision-making process that I think is super fascinating, because now you have people who are really good at this game where they have to make decisions where they take less optimal units because they want a certain tag that's only specifically available in one of the sectorials, if that makes sense.
I think that's really healthy, honestly. I'm a big fan of enforcing people to play within faction or enforcing people to play within keyword and reducing what I refer to as soup lists, right? Like what I would consider a soup list is taking in Malifaux, like taking tons of OOKs and just slapping it together with just your master or something like that, right? And I feel like that's the closest parallel I can draw to what you're explaining right now, where you're saying, the more powerful stuff, they're going to look at having that faction locked. And I think that that also serves to give those factions a stronger identity, because when you have access to them and you play them, you're taking presumably the more powerful units that are locked behind that sectorial or whatever, right?
And it's much harder to cover up for a weakness that might be portrayed in that particular list, right?
Right, because you're not souping up as much, basically, to cover out your weak spots, basically.
Correct. Which I think just makes it more interesting. But it also extends into one of the other things I'm very excited to see is they are really, really reducing the amount of mercenary profiles that you'll see spread out through the vanilla. And some of the sectorials are pretty heavy on it, where something like a Liberto, if you had access to a Liberto, you just brought it. There was no discussion. You brought it because it was arguably way too cheap for what you got. And do I blame somebody for bringing it? No, not necessarily, because sometimes if you're playing a faction that has really, really elite models, let's just say Steel Phalanx, you really want cheaper stuff in order to be able to bring the more fancy toys, right? That's just kind of what you do. So I think that creating a more robust decision-making system on turn 0 for Infinity is a really, really good move. And honestly, that's the thing I'm the most excited about. And we'll see how it goes. They've already released some of the army structure charts or whatever, whichever profiles are able to be used in some armies. They've already released a good chunk of those. I think it's interesting that some of them they just didn't release yet. So like with Pano, the only ones that they showed are Vanilla and Kestrel, which is the new sectorial. But Pano has a bunch of sectorials that are very, very, very well known. And people are like, well, how do we know who's and what? Does military order still exist? And there's a lot of discussion on that. We'll see how it goes, right? Like, this is a now problem. Let's just say in 2 months, it's not going to be a problem.
You've got to figure this is just me kind of like musing with the D here. Oh my God, that's probably not the correct shorthand for your title.
You just got to get your daily dose of vitamin D.
Yeah, got to get your daily dose of vitamin D, I guess. Anyway, you've got to think that they're playtesting this stuff kind of as we're talking, right? And that their intention is to roll that stuff out pretty promptly, right? Because even in Carlos's interviews that I watched, he acknowledged, he's like, not everything's going to be available at the initial start, but we're working on everything, and just to have a little bit of patience. I literally remember him saying that when Defective Dice was interviewing him at the convention floor on one of his videos.
Fun fact, that was Gen Con and I was holding the camera.
Is that why it was all out of focus and shaky and someone was throwing up on the other side, Brandon?
No, that was Jeff bought a bad camera.
Got it.
Okay. It's all his fault.
Anyway, I totally agree with that take, Dr. D. I think that that's an excellent take. What do we got for Dr. D trepidations or perhaps other thoughts?
So I'm a little worried about them. Like, I guess in the damage changing system, I'm a little worried that there's going to be a lot of like veterans who are going to probably like trip over that with the weird, I wouldn't even say cumbersomeness of it, where the like it's like change for the sake of change. I think to a lot of veteran players because we just got used to it, right? And we'll kind of see. That's kind of a small nitpick. Another nitpick I might have is they are definitely changing some of the ways that weapons work. And what unfortunately, maybe I'm not as optimistic, I guess, as I should be, generally speaking, is every single time you see big changes like that, when you look at a playtesting, like the ability of a company to playtest, CB is I think it's about 100, it's like 100 people that work for CB. And they're going to have people that all across the world playing Infinity, trying to playtest these new rules or whatever. There's no way that number of people can take a new trait on a weapon. So that I know they're bringing silence sort of back. I know silence is still sort of in N4 because of tactical bows that nobody ever brings or whatever. But they're bringing in these new rules, which I think always make me a little hesitant because of the fact that you never know what specific little combination of, this unit has let's just say, climbing plus or whatever, and then he has a gun that specifically has silenced, and they're also, because he has this rule where, and again, there might be new rules that we're not even aware of yet, where there's some kind of weird combinations with the point totals that just happens to hit that sweet spot where it creates a negative play experience where somebody has no way of like countering it. Which, case in point, something that's a big problem with N4. And again, I'm a little trepidatious about this. I'm really hoping that I'm wrong, which speaks to the fact that I can't really think of big complaints when it comes to this. It's mostly like these just little weird trepidations.
Yeah.
Is the guided rule is a bit of a bugger in the current edition. I won't venture to say that it's super, super broken. It is a very interesting tool. But I think if you were to have somebody, I like to think of it like if I was giving a demo game and I were to introduce this rule to somebody, they'd be like, I hate this. I never want to play this game again, right? Now, you shouldn't be using those weapons against somebody who's brand new. Unfortunately, I've seen somebody do it against somebody who's a new player. And I was like, please don't do that again. And I think that if you were to take the guided rule, which Carlos has said that they're going to change, and the words he specifically used were where people on both sides of the rule will enjoy it more, which makes me raise an eyebrow just a tiny bit and be like, okay, well,
I think that means he kind of was aware of the same thing you're talking about, you know?
yes.
And for those listening at home, what is the guided rule? Because I have no idea.
So guided, and currently in the game, is your dudes are walking around having a great time, and then hackers can, I guess you can kind of think of them as wizards, right? They can cast spells or hacking programs at about 8 inches away from either themselves or some kind of repeater, which is like they put an antenna on either on a robot or a guy carries one around, or they can throw it on the ground or whatever, or shoot it like a grenade launcher. So if your model walks through it, a hacker can use the targeting rule, which makes it so that you are easy to see on any kind of tactical HUD, which is a +3 to hit modifier for every model that's shooting at it. It also opens up the ability for any model with the guided weapon rule, which usually is attached to a missile, to hit you from anywhere on the table. And it's pretty brutal because it makes the weapon automatically like an AoE explosion. So you can use a weapon that specifically has the ability to either be a template or the ability to be AP, and you get the best of both worlds. It's really weird. And you also get a +6 to hit. And there's really nothing you can do about it because you're at a negative dodge because it's technically out of line of sight. It's a really weird conglomeration of things that probably should just kind of like slightly be altered, where I think if any one of those things was maybe wiggled a little bit to the left, like if they righty-tighty just a couple little things part of it, or little parts of it, I think it wouldn't really be a huge issue. But the weird combination of what it is right now can definitely create a negative play experience for somebody who wants to just play with their little dolly, and then they literally just get like shot from space. And you're like, okay, cool. I really wanted to play with my special dolly, but I guess I don't because I walked through somebody's, TV antenna and, I got shot from space.
And I got nuked from space.
Literally. So I think I'm a little trepidatious. Anytime anybody ever tells me that it's too good to be true, where everybody's going to be happy with a certain decision, let's just say I've been burned by that before, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I know that all of the problems I could possibly think of with the new edition, which aren't many, I have a feeling that once the initial wave of stuff comes out, eventually it's going to settle, and we're just going to find the new norm where we're like, okay, yeah, maybe, whatever, like, thing, let's just say, like, some new hacking program that may come out. Yeah, we're not a real big fan of it, but you just kind of deal with it because...
Well, I think you make a good point there, to be honest. Like, people are always a little reluctant with change, especially veteran gamers who, have just spent the last X years within this N4 system. But I think you're right. I think over time, people will settle down. They'll get used to it. It's just the nature of game edition changes, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Change comes with both sometimes good things and sometimes bad things. But I really think this N5 changeover is going to carry a bunch of good things with it. And for me personally, as a person who was like trying to get into Infinity, but obviously Infinity is a complex game system. It's very deep. For me, I'm really excited personally because I have my entire Hawk army ready to go. And I am just ready to jump back in with a little bit of a new experience, and it's kind of reset. So kind of the playing field is a little bit re-leveled for me now, I feel, as a new player, like a very, very new player. So I'm pumped for it. I guess my last question for you, for picking your brain, is: do you personally have any wish list items, like things that maybe no one talked about yet, but you would love to see, or maybe things about the old edition that were really important to your experience, or things that you really enjoyed about it that you hope they hold on to? What do you got for wish list stuff?
So my personal wish lists are, funnily enough, when they announced the new edition, I made a little checklist in my head, but this is before I learned anything about any of the interviews or any of the things.
Yeah. When you just heard that N5 was a thing and you were like, oh man, what if XYZ happened, right? Kind of.
So my first one was, man, I really hope they mess with vanilla armies and they, change up army construction. Boom, got that. I really hope that they change guided in some way. Boom, no, that's coming. And the other things that I really wanted were some kind of lore shakeup, which I'm super excited to see that they pushed into it. I'm curious to see if they are really trying to get the juice from this squeeze, because now Achilles is part of Sea Army. I'm not a huge Aleph fan, so I thought it was super, super cool to see such a weird lore change up. But we'll see how far that goes. There's not like a ton of information on that quite yet. But you can't trust Aleph. You never could. And that's all
Aleph, isn't their lore the ones where they make like people into the cybernetic demigods and send them out in power armor to just like wreck people in the face, basically?
Oh, Aleph is a very like Greek sort of theme thing going on, and she loves bunnies too.
And they have all of their heroes named after Greek heroes, right?
They're all named after Trojan War heroes.
Yeah, Trojan War heroes. Yeah, I love Aleph. Aleph's goes. If I didn't take JSA, I would have taken Aleph. But I was excited that in the lore, JSA found their own planet, right? And isn't that the like lore reason that they're their own faction now, basically?
So it's funny you say that. I was literally just reading this last night, and I got the books early, so noted this isn't available anywhere. But thank you, CB, by the way. I love you. I was reading the lore of it. Yeah, they did some real dirty shenanigans on Pano to get there, and let's just say there's some bad blood between them. That'd be a whole nother episode in itself. But JSA definitely decided to step up they put on their big boy pants, and they're getting ready to they made some really big moves, and I think it's really cool that they've become a full faction, because I think, if you like Infinity, you must, on some level, if you love the art of it anyway, you love like the manga style, and if you like manga style, you're probably a bit of a weeb.
Yeah.
It just kind of comes with it. And now in the near future, you're going to have very, very futuristic samurai people who I'm hoping on some level could cut a bullet in half or something. That'd be really cool. I'm mad excited for that. And I am going to be starting the Spider Clan army, which I was literally building it last night. I also have many boxes of JSA stuff that is
nice.
Some loving attention.
A man of class, I see.
Yes, very, very, very cultured. I drink my tea with my pinky up.
Yeah.
And anyway, so the point I'm getting to is I was excited to see some kind of lore shakeup, which we definitely got. I wanted Steel Phalanx to get hit in the nose really hard. I got that. And the other thing that the thing that I have not seen fully elaborated on, which it may or may not be the case, I'm very, very excited to see them really, really touch the equipment in the game that doesn't get a lot of love. As somebody who is a huge O12 fan, you have access to biometric visors, which don't really see a lot of use unless it's like a really, really... It's one of those pieces of equipment where you can completely forget you have it, and then there's like 1 in 20 games where you're just like, oh, this actually does something. Oh, I completely forgot that. And this might be something that your profile pays points for. So the pieces of equipment I would really, really like to see changed up on some level is the biometric visor. I would love to see the deactivator have a use, period. I would love to see a albedo. I think it's pronounced albedo, but some people, I think it's pronounced albedo, whatever you want to call it, which is the reverse MSV item, which it essentially makes you invisible to fancy pieces of equipment. And I would really like to see just the killer. I would like to see some like more programs. I was like thinking of a way to word it. I would like to see some like maybe more programs for hacking, because currently it's very, very simple, and I think it's very, very effective. But I think maybe like a new spell, I guess, if you want to call it that, a new hacking program would kind of switch stuff up a little bit, and I think that'd be really fun to explore. Other than that, yeah, I haven't seen anything that makes me super envious of other games by any means. I'm just really happy that it seems like CB keeps kicking ass as much as they have been in the past, and I just want them to keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this new edition, obviously, which is a big reason why we wanted to get you on here and start talking about it. And I'm prepping behind the scenes for November, hoping to have kind of everything immediately ready. I'm trying to finish my at-home table so that I can play some at-home games right when this thing kicks off. Thank you, Mr. D. Thank you for giving us the Dr. D here. We appreciate it. I guess before we log off, do you have any closing thoughts? You know, like we've been sitting here asking you questions for 40 minutes. Hopefully you're not too bored. But before we kind of wrap up, any closing thoughts on the subject matter of Infinity, on the subject matter of kind of closing the chapter on N4, moving to N5? Any thoughts about the community? Anything you want to close with here?
I will say I've been in this hobby for a really, really long time. I've been painting models and just doing whatever, hobby-wise, almost every single day until this day. I've been doing it for like 20 years flat. And I will say I've interacted with so many different companies from so many different games. And I will say unequivocally, CB is not a perfect company, but I have never, in my entire time of being here, ever felt like they were malicious towards my money, my enjoyment of the hobby, or my ability to interact with people that I love, to spend time and hang out and play with my little metal dolly. I can't say that for a lot of the other companies, right? I think there's a lot of like weirdness that you actually weird. I really trust Weird too. I really haven't seen anything about Weird that I've ever felt any kind of maliciousness towards. But there are definitely companies out there where I think there are just too many cooks in the kitchen, and it definitely comes out in the end product. CB is still pretty much run from a creative standpoint from the people that started it, and they continue to just refine it and all that. And Goudier and all the other guys, Goudier, the one being in charge, I'm assuming he's the one that's in charge of the lore the most. I could be wrong on that, so I apologize if I'm wrong. But the guy's been kicking so much ass, and I really, really hope that they just keep doing it. They've really, really been pushing into more PR stuff. They got a cartoon coming. They got an animated series coming. They are making the Joy Toys, if you're really, really into action figures and all that stuff. They're really pushing into the YouTube sphere, where they are getting like very famous painters to paint their stuff online. They're clearly trying, and if they hiccup every once in a while, I always give them the benefit of the doubt, where I think that they did it with the best intentions in mind. And if you ever feel like the people that are like, if you're buying their product, if you feel like they're wasting your time, you don't want to support them. And there's always going to be that niggling like feeling in the back of your head where you're just like, why am I here? I've never felt that with CB. They are a fantastic gaming company, and I do everything I can to support them in every way that I can. And you'll meet some really banger people if you play this game.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, again, I'm way more of a tourist when it comes to Infinity as a subject matter as you, like compared to you. But I have also spent the last 20 years of my life head down with little plastic army men and women. And I definitely mirror the sentiment that I think Corvus Belli absolutely does it right. They're a really, really, really nice organization in terms of people that clearly care about their product, people that are clearly invested in the product's success, and they don't just care about the money behind the product. They care about lovingly transitioning something they really, really care about into a new era. And I think that shows when you listen to Carlos talk in his interviews, when you listen to the other members that are making decisions about this, like you just talked about, of the organization. And I'm personally, like I said, I'm super hyped to jump back into this thing full feet. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. You're going to see a lot more of Dr. D on the channel, kind of as I get up to speed with Infinity. He's going to be one of the guys that helps me. He's going to get a lot of messages and DMs from me like, how does this fucking thing work? How does this thing work? What does this list look like? So we're going to have all of the information on all of Dr. D's online exploits linked in the body of this video. So please, please, please go check out his stuff. He's the man, as you can tell. Great guy, great haircut, great breath, great choice of breakfast waffle. He's the best. So I guess with that, the only thing that we have left to say is goodbye to the internet. So Dr. D, would you like to do the honors and say goodbye to the internet for us?
Internet, I'll see you later. Make sure you reach out to me if you ever need anything, and 100% keep it popping and don't let Aleph get you.
Goodbye, the internet. Brandon, you guys say goodbye to the internet too, or they'll be upset.
No. Screw
Okay.
you, the internet. No, just kidding. Buy the internet.